coming up. We'll tell you about that later on in the program as well. And then here in the Valley, and if you're throughout, right, they're based out of Atlanta, Cox Communication, information that sale with Charter did go through yesterday. I got an email last night, and we'll give you information you need to know about Cox Communications going away coming up here as well later on in the program. So let's get started with that Market Watch. And here on this Friday, everything is up here today, at least here at the beginning of the trading day. As we look at that, well, the Dow Jones, as you can see, is up 325 points right now, 53,119. The S&P 500's up 17 points to 7665. The NASDAQ just barely up here today, 15 points up right now to 26,083. And then you've got Russell 2K. That's up 13 points right now to 3,011 for that small cap index. Look at this. Bitcoin, another run up. We're going to tell you a little bit about what's going on with Bitcoin. Another 38.63 up right now as we're looking at it. Yes, folks, about 10,000 point gain here over the last couple days. 76,897 for Bitcoin. We talked about it yesterday. We're going to give you some little bit more info here as well on why all of a sudden that's running up here after just being in that 60,000 level. Has not gone over 70,000 since May of this year. So why the run up now? We'll give you the more info on that coming up as well. Treasury yields, the longer dated Treasury yields are holding steady now. Don't forget Scott Bessent bond buyback, a rally that he did where the Treasury yields were falling. They were buying the debts, which is what we're going to talk about with Bitcoin as well. But those longer dated Treasury yields, they're holding steady now, and we'll have to see where that goes. We do have a mortgage story coming your way as well, and we're still waiting on the finalization of that U.S.-Canada deal that was put together. That tariff deadline looms tonight. Well, basically 12:01 a.m. Saturday morning, so overnight tonight, well, Eastern time, is when that 3-day halt of the deal where they have the paperwork, well, that ends and goes off the table at 12:01. So are they going to be able to wrap that up? The markets are waiting for that as well here today on the marketplaces. We've been open for about 30 minutes now. Well, we're going to look at those crypto-related stocks. If Bitcoin's going to do this big of an increase over a couple days, about 10,000 points, 11,000, we're going to look at crypto-related stocks. First one we're going to look at, Robinhood, here on this Friday. Now, everything in these crypto-related stocks are up, obviously, because Bitcoin is going higher and continuing to go higher as the day goes on today as well. By the way, Bitcoin, it's on pace to end the week more than 20% higher. As I told you, about 11,000 or so. As of now, we'll see how high it ends up today. Robinhood's up 12.43% based off of what Bitcoin's doing. Coinbase is our next stock we're going to look at. Same thing, 8.97% up right now for it. And then there's Strategy as well, also up at 7.44%. If you don't know, other than the Treasury yield thing we're going to talk about in just a minute with Bitcoin, the other thing is the White House hosted crypto leaders earlier this week. They urged Congress to pass the Clarity Act. That bill focuses on crypto infrastructure and basically trying to clear out and make more clear the layout on which federal agencies would regulate crypto. That Clarity Act is being pushed by the White House. One of the reasons why cryptocurrencies as a whole, not just Bitcoin, that's the one we focus on here, but can tell you other cryptocurrencies up as well based off of these White House push on that Clarity Act out there. And later on, when we come back and look at stocks, we're going to look at Ross Stores, Broadcom, as two stocks as well, making some waves here today on this Friday. But as we just told you, right, we'll get into a little bit more details. But over the last 48 hours, these last 2 days, Bitcoin's up about 18%. And as I said, as the half an hour of trading here, up to 20% now as well. Excuse me. Holy cow. Whew, it's going to be one of those Fridays, folks. So it's up, headed to 20% here already this morning, and we'll see where it goes rest of the day. Now, as I said, Bitcoin prices haven't traded past the 70,000 level since late May. And now, why is this doing it? Well, the Clarity Act we just talked about by looking at those stocks. But the bigger issue is the Treasury's move to buy back the bonds at the longer end of the spectrum, the longer, the 30-year, for instance. And why? Well, because when you buy up those debts, you're giving liquidity to a lot of big institutions out there. Bitcoin historically has had positive reaction to liquidity expansions as well. What's been happening with Bitcoin, we told you a few months ago, specifically when SpaceX had its IPO, right? A lot of people were taking liquidity and shrinking their liquidity and putting it in SpaceX, for instance, and some of these AI stocks out there. Well, so a lot of this year's downward spiral here of Bitcoin down to the low 60,000 level and the whole crypto markets as a whole was because of tighter markets, of course, because of the Iran conflict, the rising risk of inflation, obviously, but more importantly, a lot of AI and other trades like that pulling all the liquidity into their markets away from the cryptocurrencies. It's as simple as that on why it's settled down there in that 63,000, 65,000 range for the last couple of months as well. Now, when the U.S. Treasury, went out and surprised the financial markets this week by saying they will double the maximum size of its long-term bond buyback operations. Right, it was $2 billion is what they committed to. Well, they doubled that to $4 billion per session as well. Now, this intervention in debt buying directly targets the 10, 20, and 30-year Treasury sectors. And they had spiked to 20-year highs as well right before they did double this buyback. It went to 20-year highs. Of course, consistent inflation or stagnation out there. And obviously, energy prices due to that war in Iran and the Strait of Hormuz situation as well. So if the Treasury stepped into that secondary market and purchased all this debt and everything, the Treasury is aiming to inject liquidity into the markets, which means more money to invest, right? They also want to obviously stabilize falling bond prices out there and put down soaring borrowing costs for consumers and businesses is what the Treasury is trying to do, but it's having a positive effect on the crypto markets as they respond well to the liquidity side of things. So it's not just that Clarity Act, it's also liquidity kind of being put back into the market as well. And, there's no coincidence that AI being up so big this year, memory stocks, as I told you, a lot of people left Bitcoin and the cryptocurrencies and went into SpaceX when that became an IPO. I don't know if that was necessarily a smart decision with what SpaceX is trading at, but, it's affected those cryptocurrencies, and we're seeing a little bit of a rebound here. Will it last is more of the question we need to pay attention to forward as well. Now, with Treasury yields falling or holding steady now after being at that 20-year high earlier this week, end of last week, well, the benchmark 30-year fixed rate mortgage rate, well, it's down to 6.65%. It was at 6.67% last week. Now, we get this information from Freddie Mac, and it doesn't sound like a big decrease, but it's amazing how much more you can afford with just that small 0.02% decrease there in the mortgage rates. 1 year ago, the problem is the average rate was 6.58%. So, yes, mortgage rates are going down, ticking down right now, but it's still higher than last year's rates at this time. Borrowing costs on a 15-year fixed rate mortgage, those are set by refinancing a home loan. That tends to be the 15-year. Well, it eased this week as well. It went down to 5.95%. That was just a little tick down, 5.96% last week for them. Problem is, again, last year at this time, it was at 5.69%. So ticking down, a lot higher than it was last year as well. So we know bond markets, thus mortgage rates, have been mostly rising this year, all mainly because of the war in Iran, inflationary concerns, oil prices going up. And so, it's hard to say there's a downtick when it's only a few small percentage points, 0.02%, 0.1% for the remarket out there, but it's also higher than last year. So we have a lot of back and forth here with the Treasury yields, mortgages, and it's just depressing times here around some of these markets and stuff like that. And interesting story here, right? We were waiting all week. We saw Target's reporting. We saw Walmart's reporting. We saw Home Depot and Lowe's reporting. So those were the ones people were paying attention to. Lazy Boy was way down in their reporting as well, and their stock took a dive the other day. And a lot of this is scurrying up some retail animosity or fears out there. And Walmart, right, did have disappointing sales. Now, Home Depot did not have disappointing sales. Lowe's did, though. But Home Depot's strength was among budget conscious do it yourselfers. Meaning, remember Home Depot, when we talked about it the other day, we said Home Depot said small projects around the house are what are giving them good sales. Budget conscious is what they're calling us consumers now out there as well. Specifically, middle class American consumers. Well, we're growing more tight fisted out there. But wealthier shoppers, they've kept supporting luxury brands, right? Tapestry, which is Coach and those types of brands, Ralph Lauren. Those are still being supported by the people with money out there. Earnings report over the past month from several supermarkets, home improvement stores, restaurants, even those luxury brands. Well, they've showed consumers are directing most of their spending toward essentials. They're putting off big projects, hence the Home Depot comments, right? Small projects, keeping them numbers good for them as well. But the other side of it is we are still making room. Even though we're becoming budget conscious, we're making room for affordable treats and, the occasional splurge out there on a bigger ticket item as well. Aggregate spending has actually not collapsed. But what's happened is households are becoming much more deliberate about where their money goes. Yeah. Now, what does this mean? Because, right, it's August, end of August. We got a holiday season coming up, folks. And if we look ahead to that holiday shopping season, experts are saying that retailers will probably rely on a mix of discounts, new merchandise, we'll talk about that in a second, and even higher end brands in order to keep shoppers and consumers coming in and buying products this holiday season. Price cuts alone may not be enough to compel a shopper in our current economy out there. To give you an example, at McDonald's, remember how they did the $5 meal and it kind of boosted their sales for a quarter or so? Well, that's kind of gone away. Discounted meal options at McDonald's this quarter, it failed to draw new customers in because the rest of the menu is expensive. Yeah. So consumers at McDonald's responded more strongly, or in the consumers in general, responded more strongly to fresh menu items out there, right? Taco Bell came out with new items, KFC, Pizza Hut, and those had stronger sales than just discounting things like at McDonald's and how they handled it as well. Walmart, TJX, which is the parent company of TJ Maxx, even Home Depot, they warned this week that shoppers remain selective when they were doing their reporting. And even then, if you remember, retail sales in July logged their first fall in 9 months there in over July. So the lesson here is consumers are still spending, but they're being a lot more choosy on what they're spending their money on and how they're spending it out there. So if you're feeling that way and you're doing it, just let you know you're not alone on how you're doing it. I find myself doing it where I'm just like, ain't worth it. Ain't worth getting. Let's just move on with our lives. Kind of a response, at least in my eyes here, and how I feel about my shopping experience these days. And the other thing is, right, beef prices all-time high, continue to be high, have been high. Well, President Trump's trying to ease those beef prices out there. He came out this morning and he said he would allow up to 300,000 metric tons of ground beef that's going to be imported, folks, without impacting tariff quotas. What he's doing is it's a 90-day deal aimed at lowering prices here on the beef side as customers here in the U.S. continue to deal with those high grocery bills out there as well. And no shocker here, he put it out on Truth Social, his social media company. He said he has a commitment that the meat will be sold at 25% below current market prices. He did not say which countries the beef was coming from or even who had committed to the lower prices at all. He just said it was coming out there. All right, so my question would be, what kind of beef are we getting for that lower pricing is more of my concern. It's got to be a catch, right? Hey, if you have people coming out of school or you're thinking about a career change, and being a flight attendant or a pilot always seemed like a great job to have, and kind of a fun one, right? Get to see the world while working and get paid to do so. Although for a flight attendant side, at a lower price than you probably would like to make out there. Well, here's a story you probably should pay attention to. Yeah, flight attendants and pilots, they're at the highest risk of dying from radiation related cancers. Yeah. But by the way, folks, how high? Flight attendants and pilots are more at risk of dying from radiation cancers than people that actually work for radioactive materials. Yes. That's an amazing stat there as well. There's a new study that came out. Cosmic radiation, if you don't know, well, it comes from space. Only a small amount actually reaches the Earth's surface, but the higher you are in the in the atmosphere, yeah, higher altitudes give you bigger exposure for people at that level. So there's been limited evidence from small studies over the years suggesting that the exposure translates to higher cancer death rates among people who fly often. So obviously that would be pilots and flight attendants. They fly the most. The new study does bring important new evidence to bear to this question, though. Yeah, we get this from two Australian radiation experts. They weren't involved in the research, but they wrote it in an accompanying commentary of the study that is out there. The study itself, though, was published this week by JAMA Internal Medicine. JAMA Internal Medicine used national data from more than 12 million death certificates and even included information about occupations. The authors looked at death rates from cancers that are tied to radiation exposures, things like leukemia, lymphoma, multiple melanomas out there are radiation-based, but even skin cancer, breast, thyroid, prostate, central nervous system cancers is what they kind of focused on. So more than 500 occupations listed in those death certificates. Flight attendants had the highest percentage of deaths from radiation-related cancers. Pilots were second as well, according to the researchers. For those two occupations, the odds of dying were unusually high for each type of radiation-related cancer as well. Now, neither group saw higher than normal death rates from cancers that aren't tied to radiation exposure. Yeah, they were dominated by the radiation exposure side of the cancers as well. And I've always been like, man, I want to fly all the time. Maybe time to think that back about that a little bit as well. The researchers found that flight attendants had about 50% higher odds of dying from a radiation-related cancer than the general working population, while pilots had about 36% higher odds for them. So if you want to look at absolute risk, 6.9% of flight attendant deaths were from these cancers, about 1 in 14. So on the pilot side, it was 6.7%. Yeah, for the general population out there, well, it's 5% for that level as well, according to this survey and the accompanying reports out there around it. Now, the FAA has acknowledged that air crews are exposed to ionizing radiation, but the government, they do not set federal dose limits or even require monitoring of it as well out there. So, dentists and everybody that do x-rays are exposed to it at higher limits and things, and they kind of regulate that side of it. But flight attendants and pilots, I guess you guys are on your own out there as well. And fascinating story from my perspective on how that works out as well. So pick your career carefully, I guess we can say out there as well. And well, speaking of cancer, something linked to cancers and thought of being cancers and causing cancers, yeah, alcohol, folks. Americans, as we know, they're not reaching for alcohol at anything close to record levels, or matter of fact, it's record lows that they're doing. We've heard these stories. We've seen the sales of alcohol companies and stocks of them go down over the last several years. Well, now we have a new Gallup survey to confirm these ideas as well. Now, the survey came out August 20th. It found the number of Americans who say they drink alcohol is at 54% for the second consecutive year. Now, the reason why, though, health concerns. Well, major factor is why people don't go to alcohol. 51% of U.S. adults believe drinking 1 or 2 alcohol beverages a day is bad for your health. Well, remember, when I was growing up and as I was getting older, it was always you should have 1 or 2 glasses of wine, let alone other things. It helps you out. Now, people think that that is bad for you. Well, the figure's essentially unchanged from last year's record high 53% number at that point for bad health coming from just one or two drinks. In 2001, only 27% consider moderate drinking bad for one's health, according to this Gallup study out there. Awareness of research about drinking and health has also increased. 80% of Americans who said they have heard at least something about recent studies concerning long-term health effects of drinking. Yeah, studies are out there, folks. That's up from 79% in 2024. Now, alcohol and drinking alcohol specifically, it's been linked to negative health impacts over the years, and it gets more and more health impacts as we learn more about it. But also, like I said, certain cancers are being linked to alcohol and higher chance of getting those certain cancers. Research published earlier this year by the American Cancer Society. Now, this was a peer-reviewed journal on cancer. It found drinkers with an average lifetime alcohol intake of 14 or more drinks per week, 25% higher risk of developing colorectal cancer, 95% higher risk of developing rectal cancer compared to those with an average of less than one drink per week. Americans who report sometimes drinking too much, it's fallen also. There's a new low right now, 13% at that level as well. Now, Gallup, in this study for the first time, well, they ask about non-alcoholic alternatives. 17% of the respondents reported consuming non-alcoholic beer, wine, spirits, instead of those alcoholic drinks in the past year. Now, these were all based off of this Gallup survey was based off interviews in July with more than 1,000 U.S. adults aged 18 and older from that side. So now imagine if you're a flight attendant or pilot who likes to drink a lot. You're just rolling those cancer dice if that's what you're doing out there. Man, do we have any good stories out there? Maybe coming up here. Yeah, Pizza Hut making a name change. We'll talk about that coming up here later on in the program. And when we come back here at McCollum on Business, Cox, one of the biggest internet and cable providers here in Phoenix, and of course based out of Atlanta. Well, big changes coming to them. We'll tell you what kind of to expect. I did get my email last night with the expectations to come. So let's tell you about it as well. Come on back, folks. McCollum on Business. And we're back here, McCollum on Business, here on this Friday edition. Yes, we're keeping it rolling here as well. Of course, you just saw the commercial for The Real Matrix today at noon. Episode 2 of a Dr. Fauci episode out there. Last week we had the first one. This week, today at noon, the second one will be out on Rumble. Rumble.com/user/TME Media. Exclusive to Rumble there, as well as your free podcast systems for The Real Matrix. Apple, Google, Spotify, iHeart, well, all there for you. Just search on those audio providers. Just search the Real Matrix, Angry Patriot. It'll come right up for you as well. Like and subscribe to it. I know a lot of you have. We see the numbers of that show immediately when it hits. You guys really like that podcast system out there. But don't forget, exclusive to Rumble as well. And all of our programming is on Rumble, from this show, the main event, the pit stop, all on Rumble as well. Just on demand over there. And then, of course, we're live on YouTube right now. TME Media AZ is where you can find us. Live here, live with the main event, 8 to 10 a.m. Coach Kevin Guy from the Arizona Rattlers will be joining us here today at 9 o'clock. So make sure you come and join us live. If you can't catch us live, your boss is a slave driver, kids having problems getting ready for school and getting them out the door, you're running late because it's a lazy Friday, well, catch us on demand later in the day if you would. Every program except for this one, McCollum on Business, is on your free podcast systems. Just search the show names, the pit stop with Steven, the main event with Steven, the main event with Dale, the Real Matrix, Angry Patriot. It pops right up for you. Like, subscribe it so it pops up on you for you. Of course, if you could, like and subscribe either to Rumble if you prefer that system, or, of course, over on YouTube. Like and subscribe that page. It just helps us out, get us out there a little bit more. Hopefully we have some other options coming your way as we're working through to an app where you can just have it playing on your phone, like, your radio station apps and things. So big things coming our way here as well. Hopefully in the next, within the next month or so, as we're playing with a lot of different options out there. And with all that being said, let's get back into the last Market Watch of the week for the show. And I don't have my monitor on in front of me here. They went out on me, of course. Being a Friday, even our monitors here in the studio are like, well, we're taking this Friday off. We don't want to work that hard. So they're doing the same type of a thing. But right now, as you can see, everything is still up right now. Roughly 354 points up for the Dow Jones. S&P 500's up at the 20 points right now as well. Well, last time we looked at the NASDAQ, it was up, about 20 points. Well, it's up 40 points now for the NASDAQ as well. The Russell 2K is up around 8 points right now. I'm a little delayed compared to what you guys are seeing because of our system, my monitors here. And then Bitcoin, big increase for them, 77,121 for Bitcoin. We talked about that at the beginning of the show on what is happening with not just Bitcoin, but the other cryptocurrencies out there as well. And now let's look at our stocks that we're paying attention to right now. And I'm not going to be able to see the new ones here as we're talking about them, but the first stock we're going to look at is Ross Stores out there right now. Now, Ross, the discount retailer. Well, they posted second quarter results that exceeded the expectation levels. Ross Stores also issued third quarter earnings guidance, which the market should be happy with because it outperformed estimates as well. Ross Stores up 3.53% right now here on this Friday. And then our last stock for the week, Broadcom, is what we're going to look at for them. Bloomberg News came out and reported, of course, citing sources out there. Well, Broadcom was planning to raise over $60 billion in debt, all for a deal to support Anthropic, the AI company out there as well. So Broadcom raising some money out there. And let's see, you guys can see what it's doing. What is it up? 0.76% here today based off of that news to support Anthropic as well for Broadcom. Now let's get into and wrap the show up strong here with some local stories and Pizza Hut doing temporarily something here coming up. And man, I'm hungry thinking about Pizza Hut out there. But first, we got to talk about Cox Communications. It is one of Arizona's biggest internet cable providers. Yeah, I know a lot of you use them. We do here. We do at the house as well on the internet side. Well, now they're part of Spectrum out there. Yep, Charter Communications. They're behind the Spectrum brand. They're the parent company out there. Well, that purchase we told you about last year, well, it is completed as of yesterday. So Charter has purchased Cox Communication, creating one of the largest internet and cable providers here in the United States. This new company is going to offer services to more than 70 million homes. 45 states is where they're going to be located. Ironically enough, it always amazed me. Cox Communication was based out of Atlanta. and they didn't operate in Atlanta. And that always just kind of confused me a little bit as well. Now, what's going to happen? Well, right now your bills are going to switch to say Spectrum on them. But coming up in mid-September, Spectrum plans to launch its entire suite of products to all customers, including existing customers, those of us in the Cox markets, right, as well. And that includes Phoenix, Tucson. That's where Spectrum is moving into specifically in the Arizona areas as well. So Spectrum's pricing, packages, and branding will replace what we as Cox Communication customers have now. That's fine. Don't mess with my pricing, man. I remember that fight I went through with Cox Communication for the internet pricing for the studio here, where they promised me one thing and then tripled it. I went back in there and they gave me a hard time about it, and then I ended up getting it lower than I was even willing to pay for it. Yeah, so hopefully we don't have to go through that stuff with this conversion. Spectrum is offering a free year of mobile service to Cox Internet customers who don't already subscribe to Cox Mobile. Now, the company also promised service upgrades for former Cox customers within the next year, including a 100% US-based customer service team, which will be great because Cox Communication, you couldn't talk to anybody over the phone or on the internet. It was IEI and other people that was hard, and they just couldn't help you out. Let's just put it that way. It's not a knock on anything. It's just they couldn't help you. Right? They even say same day technician visits are when they're requested before 5 p.m. is going to be what they're going to do for you. They say bill credits if outages last longer than 2 hours are coming your way. They're committed to that stuff out there. So now we'll have to see, right? How does Spectrum work? What's the pricing at? Do we get disruptions? I have good success with Cox everywhere for the most part. And I'll see if Spectrum can keep it rolling, or do they turn into like an Xfinity type company where there's just always problems with them? So hopefully that doesn't happen out there. Let's go to people who have way too much money. Yeah. A Florida optometrist who's not shy to brag. I was reading several stories about this gentleman. And he's a Florida optometrist turned billionaire, folks. He's an optometrist, made a lot of money there, did really well in the stock market, brags that all of his stocks are up 40% this year and everything. Well, he's paid a record-breaking price for a bespoke Ferrari Luce at auction. Now, this is that car that was mocked. This is the EV of Ferrari that they came out with, and they mocked them. They mocked this car. Well, the optometrist says he purchased as part of his philanthropic plan. Okay. His name is Dr. Herbert Wertheim. He's 87 years old. So he's just trying to tie up his money, keep it away from his snotty-nosed kids or something. Yeah, $40 million for Ferrari's first fully electric vehicle. Now, we got this at a Sotheby's charity auction as well. So the money did go to charity from that perspective. This Ferrari Luce, if you remember, it's estimated worth at just $1.1 million in comparison. Yeah, that's the estimated price on it. But it's going to carry a price tag of around $640,000 when they roll these out exactly. This is number one. That's why it's a little bit more. Plus, it's for charity, so why not pay extra? Here's what he said. It will not be my personal car to go to Publix to get bananas. That would be great if it was, though, wouldn't it? Now, according to Sotheby's, the massive price tag makes the Ferrari Luce the most expensive new car ever sold at auction. This is the car that, as you can see on your screen there, glass roof design, mocked by a lot of Ferrari fans when it was first unveiled in May. Some called it ugly. A lot of people said, who would buy this garbage? And obviously that's a big deal for Ferrari because they're a luxury car maker. And even when they unveiled it, the luxury Ferrari, they saw their stock drop 8%. Yeah, when they revealed this car. Yeah, $5 billion was wiped out from its market cap, revealing this car. It also doesn't help that's an EV electric car as well. So a lot of people in the Ferrari world do not want that electric side of things as well. So he paid just his astronomical amount, $40 million for this car when it's only worth $1.1 million being the first one. You can buy it new when they roll them out for $640,000 and everything. But it's nice to be rich. Yeah. the $40 million he paid for this car, it's just a fraction of his net worth. 0.6 to 0.8% is all this Ferrari is to his net worth. That'd be like you and me going to McDonald's and buying a hamburger. Just a blip on the radar for him out there. But there you go. Overpaying for a car. I just like how I want to see him roll up and buy bananas. I think that'd be fantastic. All right, so if you're going to be paying attention, it's football season. You'll see commercials. You might get a little bit confused. Yeah, Pizza Hut, they're temporarily for a few months, they're dropping pizza from its name. Yes. Why? Football season is upon us. And, of course, they're waiting to be sold. The deal's going through. It should happen here any day now, to be honest with you. They thought it would close in August. We'll see if it still happens here coming up. But the parent company, Yum Brands, are unloading Pizza Hut as well. Well, Pizza Hut said that it's going to go by Hut for the next 25 weeks. Obviously, coinciding with the 2026 NFL season. It's going to be known as Hut. Get used to it. Don't a lot of us just call it the Hut anyway? I feel like we do. Maybe it's just my world. Yeah, don't forget, Pizza Hut's being sold to Long Range. They agreed to acquire Pizza Hut's operations outside mainland China for about $1.5 billion. And then Yum China Holdings agreed to purchase Pizza Hut's mainland China operations, a separate $1.2 billion deal. And like I said, it's supposed to close here in August. We'll see if it gets done here over the next week and stuff. But, yeah, Plano, Texas is where Pizza Hut's based out of. They put, as you see on your screen there, they just put a football over the pizza on their signs. And now they're just called the Hut. Hut, 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 Hut. All right, enough of that nonsense. It's Friday, folks. Having some fun here to wrap up the show. We'll be back Monday morning at 7 a.m. Come and join us, would you? If you catch us live, thank you very much. If you missed us live, catch us on demand. The Real Matrix today at noon over on Rumble and the free podcasting system. But coming up at 8 o'clock, we got the main event. Coach Kevin Guy from the 2026 champion Arizona Rattlers. 2 out of 3 years of championships for an already successful franchise. Joining the program at 9 o'clock today. Come and join us, would you, live from 8 to 10. If you miss us live on YouTube, catch us on demand later in the day or on the free podcast systems. We'll see you then, everyone. Have a great weekend.